for more on the FLA's report, what the findings could mean going forward. I'm joined from Minneapolis by Gene Munster, senior research analyst at Piper Jaffray. Gene, some really strong language in this report. How serious are these violations that have been pointed out by the FLA?
Well, I mean, they are serious. I guess in fairness, it's an industry issue, number one. And number two is when you interview 30,000 people and you're looking for things, you're going to find things. They found things that were serious. And, you know, as it comes down to Apple, like Corey was talking about, what's the impact, raise prices or lower margins? And we've gone back and done the math on it. And if assuming they don't raise prices, Apple does not raise prices, and assuming that the costs of labor go up by 20%, that would impact the overall margins by about 1%, just over 1%. And so, yes, this does have an impact, but Apple is such a behemoth, they can kind of take the hit on this and be a leader, I guess, across the industry.
What about the stock, Gene?
You know, I think, you know, separately beyond the FLA stuff today, you let off when we're talking about Research in Motion, and that's a company that has a lot of problems, and the reason is because of Apple. You know, you see those ugly numbers, and the reality is somebody's winning, and it's Apple. So as far as the stock is concerned, yes, the FLA is very topical today. I think it's going to be a continued conversation. But what's more important is how many phones Apple's selling. It's just over half their business, and based on our work, that's going exceptionally well.
Now, as you said, Gene, this is an industry issue. Other technology companies like Dell have their products manufactured in these very same factories. But Apple is the company that has chosen to open its doors to the FLA. Do you think in the long run this is going to be good for Apple, or do you think this could backfire?
You know, I think the backfire moment would be today as people read this and decide how much blame, if that, to put on Apple. I actually would say that, to your point, is that Apple's been open and kind of bringing this on themselves. And so I think the probability of this backfire is very low. If there's any backfire, it would be something to the impact to margins, as we talked about. It's probably a little bit over 1% impact in 2013.
I also mentioned that the FLA does get some of its funding from Apple. Can we believe that this report is totally unbiased?
Well, I mean, the findings were strong enough, I guess. You know, if they're hiding anything, that there's something more egregious going on, you never know. But I think the FLA is obviously a stand-up organization, and I doubt that Apple's sponsorship of that has any impact on this.
Overall, Gene, we're seeing Apple be so much more open these days than in the days of Steve Jobs. You know, Tim Cook's trip to China, highly publicized. Apple's even releasing some photographs. They're opening their factory doors to independent inspectors. Is this all moving in a good direction, you think?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, you're hitting it right on. This is something about the new Apple since Tim Cook has taken over. You see some of the photos of him going through those plants wearing his yellow scrubs, and you think, would Steve Jobs ever be seen doing that? And the answer is absolutely not. And so you got to give Tim Cook credit for really taking this head on. And I think that this is a sign that the company is more open, and I think they've been more open with shareholders ultimately too. And so things are moving in a good direction.
At what point, Gene, are you going to be looking for potential impacts from this report in Apple's or to Apple's bottom line, whether it means hiring more workers, whether it means changing prices? At what point are you going to look for evidence of all of this in the supply chain?
It sounds like some of the changes are going to start in summer of 2013. And so that really impacts kind of the back half of 2013. And so we may factor that into our model a little bit early. In the past, there have been, this is important to note, a year and a half ago, there was a broad, across-the-board wage increase at Foxconn that was in the magnitude of 30%. And we thought that was going to have a negative impact on margins. And as Corey's pointed out, the margins just keep going up. And so the reality is that, yes, we're definitely aware of this, but there's a good chance that this has no, at least, noticeable, visible impact on their business.
All right, Gene Munster of Piper Jaffray, thanks so much for giving us some extra context there. Really appreciate you joining us as always.